a shadow with no face, a weight on your chest, a whisper in your ear that isn't your own. He doesn't knock. He doesn't ask. He takes. They say he comes when the world is asleep, when your mind drifts beyond the veil of dreams, and your body lies helpless in the dark. For centuries, women have woken breathless, trembling, certain they were not alone. Some say it was just a nightmare. Others never woke up at all. This episode, we descend into the legends, the warnings, and the real accounts of the Incubus. This is Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 2, The Snapdragon Files. Episode 22. File number 225. As always, I'm your host, Michael. Shall we begin? The Incubus is a demonic figure rooted in ancient mythology, folklore, and religious texts. Often portrayed as a male demon who seduces or assaults women in their sleep, its female counterpart is known as the succubus. Now, the origins of the Incubus can be tracked back to its Sumerian roots. One of the earliest references to incubi like demons come from ancient texts where they believed to harass people at night and were associated with sexual disturbances and nightmares. In Jewish folklore, the figure of Lilith, believed to be Adam's first wife before Eve, later evolved in folklore as a succubus-like demon who bore demon children with incubi. These myths often included themes of nighttime attacks and infant mortality. In medieval Europe, during the Middle Ages, belief in incubi was widespread. The church condemned sexual dreams or nocturnal emissions as possible signs of demonic visitation. Many believed incubi were responsible for sexual violations during sleep, infertility, or even unexplained pregnancies. During the infamous witch trials, alongside the horrific witch hunts, both men and women were accused of consorting with demons. Ancient manuals detailed how incubi operated and how women could protect themselves. These demons were believed to steal semen or shapeshift to carry out their seductions. The appearance of an incubus is usually depicted as dark, shadowy, or beast-like figures, sometimes with wings, horns, or glowing eyes. They can also shapeshift into attractive men to deceive their victims. Their behavior: visiting sleeping women at night, feeding on sexual energy or life force, leave the victim feeling weak, anxious, or with vivid sexual dreams. In some myths, they father half-demonic offspring. In various traditions, incubi were used to explain sleep paralysis, night terrors, or repressed desires, especially in more conservative societies. In modern times, psychology and its modern science interpret incubus encounters as a form of sleep paralysis, where a person is aware but unable to move, often experiencing hallucinations, including a presence pressing on the chest. The incubus often appear in horror, fantasy, and gothic romance genres, often depicted as darkly seductive beings who blur the line between danger and desire. The incubus phenomenon has always been a weird one. I knew we would eventually get to this creature, because anybody that remembers season 1, we tackled its sister monster, the succubus. And this file is even creepier than that one was. But for context, this actual file is a statement from the victim that it terrorized. It mentions my great uncle by name, but he doesn't actually discuss anything about this file. This is all from the victim's point of view. And that victim, well, she was one of the biggest and brightest actresses in movies and television back in the 70s and 80s. Obviously, I can't divulge her real name, so we'll just call her Vivian. And from what I can tell, this was prepared as part of one of her autobiographies, probably to lock in the movie rights for what happened to her. But the fact that her statement is being documented in the Snapdragon files tells you just how polished it was. And it solidifies that our dark, secretive government believed every word. And this is what she said happened. Under the soft glow of her Beverly Hills mansion, Vivian, America's darling, drifted into uneasy sleep. By day, she dazzled the cameras with her radiant smile. By night, she trembled beneath satin sheets, heart racing as unseen hands and claws caressed her skin. It had started 3 months ago. Whispers in the dark, fingers brushing her thigh, a hot, fetid breath against her ear, murmuring words she could never quite remember. Come morning, they were disturbing as they were ancient. At first, she blamed stress and insomnia, or too much wine, or an occasional coke party, common ailments for the world's most watched woman. But then the bruises began to appear. Her manager wanted her to get help, but she didn't know what to tell anybody. Then dark fingerprints began to show up across her hips, her wrists, and eventually a cruel bite on her neck. Swollen and angry, she tried her best to hide it beneath her diamond chokers and extravagant clothing. But the public seemed to catch on. The paparazzi wouldn't let the mysterious bruises and scratches go. Not only was she being stalked by some unknown demonic force, but the public wanted answers too. In desperation, Vivian hired Simon Hale, a reclusive occult specialist with sunken eyes and yellowed nails. He arrived with a battered suitcase of talismans, chalk, and vials of dark liquid that smelled like rot. Now, her latest studio sent someone as well, a friend of the director of her latest movie, a handsome military man who spoke more with his fists than his voice. This director liked to use him for info on all the military shenanigans to get them just correct enough for the cameras. And this heroic patriot went by the name of Sam. He showed up with a backpack and Tylenol because occult members always gave him a splitting headache. Vivian quickly filled Simon in on all the gory details of her past events and showed him the scars and bruising that she claimed was happening from an unseen force. Now, my great uncle Sam had seen this before, and he knew immediately that they were dealing with the paranormal, but he kept it to himself and waited and watched to see how Simon would handle this. Because according to my uncle's experiences, most of these supposed occult experts were 90% charlatans. And without wasting any more time, Simon stepped forward and eagerly announced, "You're being hunted by an incubus." It came out in a breathy whisper, almost as if he was auditioning for a part in her newest movie. He continued to make himself comfortable in her lavish bedroom and said, "A predator drawn by your fame, and my dear, drawn by your loneliness." My great uncle Sam rolled his eyes and walked into the other room. Later that night, they prepared a ritual. Circles of salt, sigils scrawled in black ash across her mirror. Simon stood chanting, sweat pouring down his forehead. Vivian lay trembling on the bed, clinging to a small crucifix. Soldier Sam stood leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, nerves on edge, as he watched the scene play out. Quickly, the temperature dropped in the room. Vivian's breath fogged into the air. And immediately, a guttural growl reverberated through the room, vibrating the crystal chandeliers above. From the shadows near her wardrobe, something stepped forward. Tall, gaunt, skin stretched over sharp bones, eyes like coals set deep into a skull that split open with rows of jagged teeth. Sam stepped forward, readying himself with his weapon at his hip. Vivian tried to scream, but her voice failed. The incubus crawled onto the bed, its claws sinking into the mattress beside her head. The stench of sulfur filled her nostrils as it lowered its face to hers, its body sunken in to the folds of her clothes. "Mine," it rasped. Cold saliva dripped onto her cheek. And before my great uncle Sam could do anything about it, Simon shouted, thrusting a dagger tipped in obsidian into the demon's side, and tried to stab it again. The creature shrieked in anger. The sound shattered every bulb in the room, cracking the giant mirror on the far-off wall. Simon cheered. "How do you like that, monster?" And with a snap of its disgusting jaws, it turned to Simon, lunging outward, ripping into his chest with grotesque hands. Blood sprayed across the silk sheets, sending pools to the floor and blood spatter on the boots of my Uncle Sam. Vivian bolted upright, grabbing a lantern from her nightstand. With a sobbing plea, she smashed it over the incubus's back. Flames erupted, consuming the demon in a pyre of blue flame. My Uncle Sam swiftly unloaded a whole clip of bullets into its wailing and flailing body. It unearthly spun into the air, its wailing growing higher and more ear-piercing by the second. It shot forward, slicing at Sam's chest, but he managed to move out of the way just in time, so only his backpack would feel the full force of the incubus's attack. Its claws sliced through it like it was made of paper, and the backpack fell to the ground. The flames grew wilder and more out of control, causing the great demon to moan and shake. Sam turned and looked at the bag of potions and nonsense that Simon had brought to the party. He flipped it over, shaking out all the material onto the ground, finding a jar that looked like oil. Without hesitation, he picked it up and slammed it into the demon's face. Its face cracked, almost like shattered glass, and a ball of white fire exploded everywhere. The monster's wail grew more ferocious before starting to fade away, and in a matter of moments, it dissolved into oily smoke that crawled along the ground before disappearing completely. Silence returned, but the room laid wrecked and devastated. Simon's lifeless eyes stared at the ceiling. Vivian dropped to her knees, sobbing, before physically getting sick. Sam came to her side and tried to calm her. And suddenly, her bedroom phone began to ring. He answered it quickly, and without saying a word, he shook his head and hung it up. He returned to Vivian and helped her to her feet, and with only a look, told her it was time to take your life back, because outside, the paparazzi was waiting. Cameras flashed, news reporters readied and prepared themselves to go live. Oblivious to the horror inside, they'd come for a glimpse of America's sweetheart. None would know how close they were to witnessing her death at the hands of something that most people don't think exists. My great Uncle Sam helped clean her up, called her manager, who sent over a driver to pick her up to bring her to the studio. And as he helped her out her front doors, the cameras flashed. Reporters called to Vivian. "Who's the new man in your life? Is he a soldier? Are you pregnant? Why are you keeping him a secret?" More cameras flashed as an annoyed and already angry and tired Sam helped Vivian into her expensive rental car. He followed, and they both drove off into the night. The next day, as my great Uncle Sam was cleaning up and preparing for his next mission, he thought to himself, "What the hell?" and turned on the TV. And wouldn't you know it, there he was on the morning news, walking America's sweetheart to her car, surrounded by reporters and paparazzi, and oblivious to everyone else behind them in the shadows of her closing front door. Just beyond the flashing lights of her adoring public was two red eyes, watching, waiting. They blinked open before disappearing into the darkness. My great uncle turned the TV off, closed his eyes, and huffed. Well, shit. So, fellow gardeners, I wanted to give you a quick life update. Things have been better. The podcast is doing well. There's opportunities for growth that have approached me, and I'm enjoying getting to know my peers in the paranormal field. The monster community is quite accepting and filled with plenty of good people. I hope to have some news that I can share in the near future about this podcast and the files that make up its core. But for now, I'll just have to tease you with next week's episode. I think we've all seen one or experienced some form of this myth. There are a dozen television shows and docuseries chasing this monster, but the Black Garden file on it will blow you away. Join me next time as we hunt down ghosts. I'm Michael, and you've been listening to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 2, The Snapdragon Files. And please take this warning to heart. Monsters are very, very real. And sometimes they'll make you famous.